Senator Bernie Moreno, thank you so much for joining me on CBT News. It is quite an honor, and needless to say, it's very timely in that the auto industry right now is at somewhat of a standstill, not knowing which way to turn with the President Trump's announcement on tariffs. So you are just the person that we can turn to there in DC to help us figure this all out in the auto industry. So what we should know, what we should focus on, how to disseminate some of this misinformation about tariffs that's out there right now. So I'll let you take it from there. Obviously, you know our dealer audience, and they want to hear from you and others that are in this space. So what say you on this topic of tariffs? What do we need to know?
Well, Jim, thank you for having me. And I want to speak directly to the dealer community, a community I was proud to be a part of for most of my adult life. So number one, let's talk about what's actually happening because there's a
Okay.
lot of misinformation out there. So number one, starting April 2nd, so on Wednesday, for cars assembled, final assembly, and the car dealers understand these terms, so I have to explain them. So for cars final assembly in the US, even if they get their parts from Mexico or Canada, there will be zero tariffs. So zero
Okay.
tariffs on cars that are final assembled in America, even if they receive parts from Canada and Mexico. So that's category
Okay.
one.
That's
Category
good.
two is cars that are final assembled in Mexico or Canada. The
Okay.
cars will have a tariff of 25% on the
Hmm.
content that's not US content. So for example, if a certain model vehicle is final assembled in Canada but has 50% US content, only 50% of the car would receive the 25% tariff. That's
Okay.
category two.
Okay.
Category three is cars that are final assembled in America, but get critical components, engine, transmission, electronics from other countries that are not Mexico and Canada. The parts themselves will have a 25% tariff on the final assembled vehicle. The best example there, think about the Mercedes-Benz plant in Alabama, the BMW plant in South Carolina. Those powertrains come in from Europe. So the powertrains, the engines, transmissions will have a 25% tariff. Category four is the easiest one to understand. Think your Bentley, your Rolls Royce, your Porsche, your Ferrari, or your Lamborghini. Those cars are shipped to the US on a vessel. They get unloaded at our ports. No US content, no US final assembly. They will get a flat 25% tariff on the entire value of the vehicle. That's what's actually happening. I need dealers to understand this because this is really important, Jim. This is the plan. So this isn't a negotiation tactic. This isn't a temporary measure. This is the long-range plan to do this. Our auto industry matters a lot. So I just want to pause there, Jim, and see what questions you have before we move into why we're doing this.
Okay, so for the dealers that are out there that are listening to us have this conversation, some of them, and in fact, many of them out there are were huge, Trump fans and are huge Trump fans and see what his goal is here to do. When you say it's not a negotiation tactic, many dealers think that actually it was a negotiation ploy to get these countries to come around and say, okay, what's fair for you is fair for us, and let's move forward. But from your point of view, this is something that's going to be here to stay.
This is it. This is the plan for at least the next 4 years. And if we stay in the White House, it'll be for the next 8 years after that. We have to do this. So just shift to number two. Like, why? So if there's dealers out there going, why are we doing this? And it's very simple. The U.S. final assembly of automobiles is a national security imperative. Heaven forbid, Jim, that we ever had to actually go to war in this country. We need industrial capacity. And the industrial capacity comes from having final assembly of automobiles is something that we can pivot to military purposes. We saw that in World War II. It's how we won. We would have lost World War II if not for that industrial capacity. It wasn't superior technology. The Germans objectively had better technology than we did, but we won because we could make a lot of things really fast. The Ford family deserves a lot of credit. They pivoted their factories and produced a lot of machinery that allowed us to win that war. And that's why it's important. It's also important for another reason. These are jobs that pay well. The average UAW worker makes a family sustaining wage, which we want to encourage, meaning that you can have a mom or a dad go to work, own a home with that wage, own a car. We'll get to back to that in a second. Raise a family, live in a safe community, go on vacation every once in a while, and retire with dignity. That's the essence of the American dream, and there's no industry that does that better than the auto industry. And finally, going back to the you can own a car, look, we need a thriving middle class in this country. If we're going to be as dealers, have to have a market out there saying, who can we sell our products to? Who can we sell our services to, our parts to, our financial services to? We need a customer base. And it can't just be the uber wealthy that we sell Mercedes and Rolls Royce to. We have to have people that buy Fords and Toyotas and Hondas and Chevys. And where does that come from? It comes from having a strong middle class. The number, millions of jobs that will happen as a result of this is unbelievable opportunity for car dealers, especially in auto producing states like mine, in Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee. I could go on. I think that's the imperative, and that's the why, Jim. We can't continue to let these cars be made overseas, and we're just a services economy. It's really important to understand that, and I think car companies will get there. I talked to the CEOs of literally every single car company on earth. I've talked to all of them, some of them very regularly, and they all will be making more investments in the U.S. They, as a result of this action, will be shifting manufacturing in the U.S. And I know I've been wordy, but let me just say one more thing, Jim. In return, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a tax environment that's very favorable. We're going to give you a regulatory environment that's very favorable. We're going to make certain that we have workforce policies that encourage and motivate people to work, not to stay home. So those are the things that we'll do. And we're going to, as a result, the golden era of this country is in front of us. And I think that's great news for car dealers.
Sure, sure. Let me ask you this though: for the people that say these vehicles are manufactured by parts that are brought into even the U.S. produced vehicles, even the manufactured vehicles that are here, or I should say, cars that are being manufactured here, in large part we're dependent on other countries for those parts, namely China and others. What do you do in a situation like that a company says, yeah, we'll manufacture them here, but we're still dependent on all of these parts coming, from other countries? Would all of the parts then also have to be manufactured here in the U.S. in order to realize that relief of the tariff?
So remember, as I mentioned, it's just critical components. So engines, transmissions, electrical components. And remember, no tariff if those products are manufactured in Canada or Mexico, where we have a free trade agreement. So of course, we can't make every single component here. We recognize that, but we need to have vibrant and strong supply chains. We saw that during COVID. Car dealers lived through that, right? Semiconductor chips. We're dependent on Taiwan and foreign countries for that. And when that collapsed, we saw what the result was. So we want to bring as much of the supply chain here in the U.S., but the tariff itself will only be if it's outside of USMCA for engines, powertrains, engine transmissions and electrical components.
Okay. As you know, the affordability issue has been one that we've been dealing with really since COVID, and before that, with the average price of a new car being almost $50,000. There's a lot of nervous dealers out there that feel as though this is going in the opposite direction, and that middle class won't be able to afford the average new car. What do you say to them?
Well, there's a few things. Number one, we're introducing a bill to make interest tax deductible on auto loans for cars made in America. So that's a small piece of relief. The biggest relief is something called the Transportation Freedom Act. You've covered it. Basically, it says that we're going to create one set of federal standards that are aspirational. States can't do their own thing. There's no exceptions or waivers for California or New York or anybody else. This gives the industry certainty. It doesn't drive them into having to produce electric vehicles that lose them tens of thousands of dollars. So the car companies can then take that money and make the cars people want. So giving them certainty, taking away the EV mandate is critical. So they're not losing money on electric vehicles and having to raise the price on internal combustion engine cars. So providing that relief is really important. And as you know, Jim, look, if a Land Rover is 20% more expensive, that customer is probably not going to not buy a Land Rover. We saw that during COVID when these things were going for 30, 40, 50 grand over sticker. I'll pick on Land Rover a little bit more. They've raised their sticker prices in the last 3 or 4 years by like 20%. So there's lots of flexibility they have there. But on the mass market cars, yeah, there will be substitution. There may be people who would have bought a Mazda, but with the tariff, the car's more expensive, so we'll buy a Ford. And honestly, look, it kills me to say this because I have great friends that are Mazda dealers, but in the short term, Mazda will lose market share to Ford. And that's actually a net benefit to the US because the more Ford does and the better Ford does, they're employing American workers and those profits accrue to the US. Now, that doesn't mean that Mazda at some point doesn't fight back and say, hey, look, we're going to make more cars here in America that were once brought in from Japan. And again, we win there also. And that's the big message, Jim. Let's get to number 3. What's the reaction to car dealers? Great sales opportunity. Never let a sales opportunity let you go by. Every single car on your lot is tariff-free right now. You do not have one car in your lot that has a tariff on it. Use this opportunity to create momentum, to create sales. Understand that used vehicle values are going to continue to be strong. That's also a net positive for you and being able to pull service customers out of vehicles. So I would motivate your sales force like we did during COVID, like we did during the chip shortage, like we did during the financial crisis, like we did going all the way back to the gas crisis in the 70s. If there's one industry that knows how to be resilient, it is the retail automotive business. This is a blip compared to what we've been through in the past. Use it as an opportunity. We have never been the industry that cries in a corner because something bad is happening. We always make lemonade out of lemons. And this is actually a net positive at the end and even between now and then to car dealers. It's going to be difficult for some car companies. Let me just be brutally honest about that. But at the end of the day, car dealers always know how to survive. They always know how to thrive. And by the way, customers keep their cars longer. It's an opportunity for service and parts, opportunity for used, opportunity to sell more warranties, opportunity to get people to buy products that keep their cars running better. So take this as the opportunity it is and the way car dealers have always done that in the past.
Yeah, I spoke to a few dealers here in just the last couple of weeks. A number of them, in fact, have reported very brisk sales, and they said they've got a good, strong feeling that the fact that these tariffs are threatening the situation, that people are now coming into showrooms saying, I better get my new car before there's a tariff put in place. And of course, it's also putting a little bit more of a value on their used car lot because people are obviously going to be looking at used cars even stronger now. Let me ask you this.
I'll take one example. Like if I was a Porsche dealer, Porsche makes, I think, some of the greatest cars on the planet. So
Sure.
a great company. Timu, by the way, the new CEO of Porsche Cars North America, great guy. You look at it and say, okay, people want to buy a Cayenne. What an opportunity to sell that person a Cayenne right now, right? Because every single Cayenne in inventory is not tariffed. And then on top of that, the market hasn't adjusted yet for the value of use of maybe that 3-year-old or 4-year-old Cayenne. So you get that inventory cheaper and that car is going to appreciate theoretically when the tariff hits and it kind of all works itself into the market. Look, Porsche will figure it out. We all know where that started. When I was a Porsche dealer for the first time in 2006, the MSRP of a Cayenne was $50,000. The MSRP of a Cayenne today, normally equipped, is almost $90,000. People are buying more Cayennes now, Jim, than they've ever bought. Nobody's going to stop buying a Porsche Turbo S 911, one of my favorite cars, because the car's a few $1,000s more. Ferrari just announced a 10% increase in price. It's not going to affect anybody from stopping to buy a Ferrari. But guess what? To every dealer out there, your Ferrari's inventory just became more valuable. So again, golden opportunity for car dealers and the end state in which we have 2, 3, 4 million cars more produced in America, and we have 10 to 15 million more workers in the auto industry that are making good family sustaining wages, is more customers for us. Look, Henry Ford invented this concept. He raised the wages of his workers and Model T sales went through the roof. So again, we're not pearl clutchers. We're not crybabies in the car business. We're strong, resilient entrepreneurs. That's what makes this model so strong. So my message to car dealers, be strong, go out there, and the one who wins, the dealers who win, are the one who makes this the best opportunity possible. And that's why I wanted to get on with you, Jim, today. These tariffs were just announced 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, and I want you, because you have a great audience, Jim. People respect you. They watched this broadcast. And I want them to know, let's get in the game. Let's go out there and make this happen. Again, some of your car company manufacturing partners are going to maybe feel a little pain. Look what they did during COVID. They raised prices dramatically during COVID. MSRPs went through the roof because they were mad that car dealers were selling cars over sticker. Well, what's the ramifications now? Well, maybe they will feel a little pressure on their bottom line that they've been making excess profits in the last few years until they invest in the U.S. And my commitment to every car company CEO is this: you want to build a factory here, you contact my office. We will get that thing turned around like that. And we can add shifts. We can take shuttered factories and get the permitting done right away. Some car companies are not successful and they have massive amounts of excess capacity. We can help successful car companies take on some of that. We have suppliers that will help as well. We're going to create a great tax environment. We're going to make the 2017 tax reform permanent. We're going to make the investment tax credit, the R&D tax credit permanent at 100%. And these are the things that will help your business. America is going to be the best place on earth to do business, and these car companies are going to come here in droves.
Senator Bernie Moreno, thank you so much for all your time. Very much appreciate it. Love to do a follow-up with you, as this story is a very fluid one.
And thanks, Jim, for doing this. Thanks for creating such a great audience out there of car dealers. They really respect you, and you've really made a great brand for yourself. And you have a pretty good son, too, by the way. And for any car dealers out there that don't know his son, John Fitzpatrick at Force Marketing, they do an amazing job.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. He's a good kid. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.